Hey y'all, it's Mr. Hill again. In this last video, we're going to be talking about the actual main event presidential election, which is actually really appropriate. We're in the middle of a presidential election year, presidential election cycles coming to a close. So, what can we expect come November? So, let's get into it. So, the actual presidential election objectives. Describe the features of the presidential campaign, explain how the Electoral College provides for the election of the president, identify several flaws in the Electoral College system, and outline advantages and disadvantages of proposed reforms of the Electoral College. A few terms: swing voter, battleground state, district plan, proportional plan, direct popular election, and national popular vote plan. So, looking at the presidential campaigns. Presidential campaigns now begin long before the conventions. The thing about the conventions is they're just the official kind of sign off on whoever the candidates are going to be. So you have speeches, you have adopting a party platform, any of that kind of stuff, and we talked about that in one of the other videos. But as far as the campaigns themselves, folks started campaigning for 2020 like 3.5-ish years ago. Right after 2016, you get to January 17, folks were already making their declarations for running for the Democratic Party nomination. You even had a couple of folks run for the Republican Party nomination, even though Trump was going to be a sitting president with another term of eligibility remaining. Candidates focus their time and money on battleground states and swing voters, trying to persuade uncommitted voters to support and vote for them. So if you look here at the map, this is from 270towin.com, which is an excellent website and really fun, especially if you're a nerd and like this kind of thing. But you can kind of see the electoral map breakdown in 2016 between Trump, who's represented by red, and Hillary Clinton, who is represented by blue. So the swing states can kind of change from one election to another. That's why they call them swing or battleground states. In 2016, the battlegrounds were Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Iowa, North Carolina, Florida, and to a lesser extent, Nevada, Arizona, and maybe New Mexico. So for those states, they can kind of go back and forth between one party or the other. In a state like Ohio, if I'm not mistaken, Ohio has voted with the eventual presidential winner, like every presidential election going back like 5 decades, maybe even more than that. That's not to say that as Ohio goes, so does America, but I mean, you could make an argument for that. So in the campaigns, voters are bombarded with ads and interviews and speeches and press releases and all kinds of stuff. And obviously, when you think about 2020's presidential campaign, we've got a COVID pandemic to deal with. So a lot of campaign resources, aka money, is going towards virtual campaigning. So doing, Instagram TV videos, doing Facebook videos, YouTube videos. They may even come up with TikToks if they haven't already done so. Obviously, you think about campaign ads that show up in your Instagram feeds or Facebook feeds as you're scrolling through, Twitter, all that kind of stuff, in addition to your standard protocol like TV and radio ads. And it's only going to get worse, or it's only going to get more common the closer to November we get. Now, in Mississippi, we're going to see some of those ads, certainly, but not near as many as they're going to see in, say, Florida or North Carolina, or this year, Georgia and Arizona and maybe even Texas is a little bit in play, so they're probably going to get a ton of ads. Never mind Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Iowa, Ohio. They're going to get so many ads, they're going to get sick of everybody before it's all said and done. Other parts of the presidential campaign: People vote for presidential electors, not directly for candidates. We talked about this in one of the other videos. So when you go and vote in November, you're voting for a group of middle people. You vote for them, and then they go and vote for, the president. As far as choosing electors, presidential electors actually cast the votes for president and vice president. Electors are chosen by the result of the state popular vote on election day. So in Mississippi, whichever candidate, Trump or Biden, wins the most votes in Mississippi on November 3rd, 2020, will get all of those electors for Mississippi, which is 6. 4 for our representatives, 2 for our senators, grand total of 6 electors. So then the electors meet at the state capitol after the election and cast 1 electoral vote for president and 1 for vice president. The results are then sent to Washington and tallied. That's going to be like the 3rd Wednesday of December, if I'm not mistaken. The framers expected the electors to use their own best judgment at first, but now electors are expected to vote for their party's candidates by default. That's not to say that we can't have so-called faithless electors, because we can. These faithless electors go against whatever the result of the statewide election is. So, for example, in Colorado in 2016, one of Colorado's 9 electors actually did not vote for Hillary Clinton. They didn't like her and simply refused not to vote for her. And it wound up going to court, and I don't know the outcome of that trial, but they definitely didn't vote for Hillary Clinton. There was a similar story in states like Washington and other places as well. So each state has as many electors as it has members of Congress. And what you can see here in this map is a kind of distorted view of the United States, where each state is sized based on its electoral strength. And even though it kind of looks like the United States, there are some states that are way out of proportion. So, for example, you think about California's got 55 electoral votes. It's a little bit bigger on this map than it should be geographically. Similar story with Illinois or Florida or New York or Pennsylvania. Meanwhile, physically large, geographically large states like Montana or Idaho are much, much smaller. Take a look at Alaska. Alaska is one of the smallest states on this map, and yet it is the largest state in the country. Each state receives at least 3 electors, 2 for its Senate seats and at least 1 for the House. So you got Alaska, Montana, the Dakotas, Wyoming, Delaware, Vermont, and then Washington, D.C. gets 3 electoral votes as well. So in a winner-take-all system that most of the states have, all the states' electoral votes go to the candidate who wins the state popular vote. It doesn't matter by how much. If you win by 1 vote in Mississippi or California or New York or Texas, it doesn't matter. That 1 vote gets you all of that state's electoral votes. So for Mississippi, you're talking about getting all 6. For New York, you're getting all 29. For California, you're getting all 55. For Texas, you're getting all 34, 6, however many Texas has. So the winner-take-all system and the unequal distribution of state electoral votes means that the winner of the electoral vote might actually lose the popular vote, which is a huge defect in the Electoral College. Let's see, you've got 1824, 1876, 1888, and 2000 and 2016. So if you're thinking about modern elections, 2 of the last 5 presidential elections, you've got somebody that doesn't win the most votes actually wins the Electoral College, which you can make a very sound argument that that's not fair or representative of the will of the people. So in 2000, Al Gore narrowly won the popular vote by about 500,000 votes. But George W. Bush won the Electoral College by just a couple of votes. It says 1 vote on the slide, but Bush had 271, Gore had 268. excuse me, 267. Florida's popular vote was disputed, leading to a recount that was stopped by a 5-4 decision of the Supreme Court. It did break down along ideological lines. It was a conservative court. They sided with Bush and gave 25 electoral votes to Bush and effectively the presidency. So electors are not required by the Constitution to pick the winner of the popular vote in their state. There's actually a current Supreme Court case being decided right now as to the constitutionality of faithless electors. As far as the House is concerned, it is entirely possible that the presidential election will need to be decided in the House, which would be super crazy as far as that's concerned. If it does come down to the House votes are by state, not individual members, which gives small states undue influence. So you think about like California. California's got 53 representatives. They're not all, liberal Democrats. It's about 40-60, maybe 35-65 split. All 53 of those people would need to get on the same page as to how to spend California's one vote. Meanwhile, in Wyoming, there is one representative. It ain't going to take a real long time for that one person, who is Liz Cheney, to figure out how she wants to spend her one Wyoming vote. If a majority of state representatives cannot agree on a choice, the state loses its vote. And it does take 26 votes to actually break the tie. So as far as proposed reforms, you got several to choose from. There's the district plan that lets every state congressional district select its own electors by popular vote. This is something that a couple of states actually do today. Maine and Nebraska are the only two states where each district, congressional district, picks an elector, and it's possible that you wind up with part of those states' electoral votes going towards one candidate and the rest going to the other. You have a proportional plan that gives each candidate a share of the state electoral vote equal to their share of the state popular vote. So if you've got a state that has, say, 10 electoral votes and one candidate wins 40% of the statewide popular vote, they'd get 4 electoral votes and the winner would get the other 6. These plans don't require any constitutional amendments, but do not guarantee that the winner of the national popular vote will actually win the election. In fact, more elections might have to be decided by the House under either of these plans. Direct popular election is the most popular alternative to the current system because, it's really easy to understand. Growing up in schools like we have elections all the time for who's who or prom queen or, whatever it happens to be. So direct popular election would abolish the Electoral College, and voters would vote directly for president and vice president. There would be no group of middlemen involved in any stage. A majority of the American people have consistently supported direct popular election for several decades now. The plan has popular support, but faces several obstacles. For starters, it would take a constitutional amendment to get rid of the Electoral College. And as it stands, the smaller states get lots of maybe undue influence and importance because of the Electoral College. They're probably not going to be okay with getting rid of something that gives them that much say. It would make the individual states less important. This would be particularly impactful for the smaller states or maybe even the swing states. It would force candidates to campaign everywhere and at great expense. They wouldn't be able to afford to spend most of their time in Ohio or Florida or North Carolina or wherever. They'd have to go everywhere. The National Popular Vote Plan is a kind of compromise. Basically, what it does is it calls on states to reform the Electoral College and actually has some pretty wide support. Here's how it would work. All the state electoral votes would be given to the winner of the national popular vote. So instead of giving all that state's electoral votes to the statewide winner, that state would choose to give all its votes to whoever wins the national vote. All states would enter into the compact to make this change effective only if approved by states totaling at least 270 electoral votes. So far, only 4 states, it's actually a little bit more than that now, have successfully changed their laws. 20 states have tried. As far as defending the process, defending the Electoral College, it's a known system. We know the ins and outs of the Electoral College, its benefits, its flaws. We know it inside and out. There are no guarantees that any reform is going to be perfect. In fact, it would very likely have unknown, unforeseen flaws that would only come up, in an election, and then maybe it'd be catastrophic. Who knows? The present system usually identifies the president-elect quickly and clearly. So November 3rd, 2020 coming up, we will probably know sometime around midnight, maybe around 1 p.m., who the next president's going to be. Is it going to be Trump for another term, or is it going to be Joe Biden, in his first term? We'll probably know. The Electoral College promotes the nation's two-party system. I'm not sure that's an advantage, but if you're a fan of the Republicans or Democrats, you got that going for you. And in its defense, only 2 presidential elections have ever gone to the House of Representatives, 1824 and 1800. And that's it. So this coming November, if you've seen these videos, you'll know what to expect. If you have me for class in government, we'll definitely talk more about it when I see you in the fall. Take care.